4 years after the massacre that claimed 17 lives at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, the young gunman awaits his sentencing fate after pleading guilty to the murders. Families of the victims work on trying to guard others against the fate that befell their loved ones. To that end, there is a relentless call for school safety legislation. And I had a chance to sit down with a dad who is helping to lead that effort in memory of his daughter.
We try and keep Gina's light shining.
Tony Montalto is surrounded by family pictures at his Parkland home.
She was wonderful.
Gina Rose Montalto had a captivating smile and artistic spirit.
We miss her very much each day.
Answers seem so obvious now.
We look at the school safety triad, enhanced campus security, better mental health screening and support programs, and finally, should you choose to own one, responsible firearms ownership.
If only the obvious had been evident 4 years ago.
And sadly, all three of those things failed us on Valentine's Day in 2018, when my daughter Gina and 16 other wonderful souls were taken from their families and our community.
An angel keeps watch over 14-year-old Gina now. The quote, "Tell the sun and stars hello for me," is inscribed on the bracelet her dad wore when we sat down.
In 2018, we saw political courage.
Montalto is president of Stand with Parkland, a group founded by the families who lost loved ones.
We saw Republicans and Democrats come together and work across the aisle to craft the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act.
Called on the legislature to give me a bill that will allow us to make our schools far safer.
Montalto and other parents were there as then Governor Rick Scott signed the act into law.
It provided money and guidance on how to secure the campus better. It provided increased funding for mental health programs for our students. It also made the most significant changes to Florida firearms law in the last 20 years.
No longer can someone under the age of 21 purchase a firearm under Florida law. Red flag laws went on the books after Parkland, too.
Red flag laws have been very important here in Florida. They've been used almost 5,000 times in the last 4 years. They help protect law enforcement as they do their jobs. They help to allow people who are having difficulties to have their weapons removed and allow them a chance to get help.
In 2019, more action in Tallahassee.
We saw important things like the creation of the Office of Safe Schools and the work on behavioral threat assessment teams being a requirement here in Florida.
2020 included change in the name of another young Parkland shooting victim.
We did see the alerting system law, also known as the ELISA law, pass. And now this is important because it helps add panic alarms to our schools and connect them to emergency services faster.
And in 2021 came passage of the Parents Need to Know initiative.
We realized that we didn't know about the threat. The mental health professionals in the area knew that there was a threat to the school. The school knew there was a threat to the school. Law enforcement knew there was a threat to the school. But nobody told the parents. So now it's a requirement under Florida law to have parents notified if there's a threat to the school, to school transportation, or to school-sponsored events.
There is a constant push for change, though at times the heartbreak is paralyzing.
It's very difficult. Some days I just can't do it, and that goes for all our families. Some days we do spend that day curled up in a ball.
But this dad and airline captain knows only one way: forward, decisively. Never-ending work, now a life mission.
I see the beautiful portrait of Gina over your shoulder. That's what keeps you going.
It does. Gina was a great kid. She was a fantastic daughter, great older sister. She was a straight A student. She was a Girl Scout. She was involved in our church group.
Looking beyond their pain to a purpose on behalf of schools everywhere.
And we need to honor them and carry on their legacy. As for my family, we always said that Gina would go out and change the world. And now, through her message, we're trying to do that.
Parkland families have also pushed successfully for federal money to help better enhance campus security around the nation. There are frustrations too, including the lack of congressional action for federal red flag laws. But in the end, a debt of gratitude is owed to those who lost everything and yet give every effort in the name of school safety. In the wake of the Parkland massacre, student activists rose up to push for an end to gun violence. And 4 years later, that movement still has momentum. In the days, months, and years since February 14th, 2018, our Alex Hagan has been telling the stories of those Stoneman Douglas students, Alex, and you're here today to talk to us about the progress that they've made and where they go next.
Well, as we all know, Michael, all of those students who were at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School at the time of the shooting and also part of that movement have since moved on. Many of them are now in college. Now, some of them decided to share their thoughts on this day. Others say the subject was just too tough to revisit. And what they say they accomplished, though, whether they're presently involved or not, it will stick with them forever. As high school students,
To that I say, no more.
they channeled their grief and trauma
Stops right now.
into a movement.
It was an event that changed me forever.
Fight for your lives before it's someone else's job.
A movement that would grab the nation's attention. 4 years later, those students are now scattered across the country. Many of them are right here at the University of Florida.
Not the high school setting anymore. Getting older now. I love being here. Can't complain.
Adam Buchwald is now a junior, majoring in business administration.
Extremely busy.
He enjoys his time with his fraternity brothers,
My picture on the composites right here.
just trying to be
Great place for me to thrive.
a normal college kid.
Again, I'm 20 years old, going to be a senior next year. I just want to move on with my life. I want to, be with my friends, my family, and try not to think about this event.
But every time February 14th approaches,
Correct.
he can't help but think back to his high school days.
It's definitely an event that I'll remember forever. I tell a lot of people, I was there. My brother was in the building. He had experienced everything. It was just a complete massacre. It definitely hurts deep down inside my heart.
Say for Adam and I, we're both grieving, both really upset about what happened. And
Immediately after the shooting at his school, he and his best friend Zach created their own movement called Parents Promise to Kids,
put children's safety over guns.
asking families to sign a contract pledging to vote for politicians who support stricter gun laws.
We've had over thousands of signed signatures.
The two spoke about their movement with me often over the years.
It's crazy. I'm just so young and it's been such a long time.
Adam was one of many vocal Stoneman Douglas students demanding action. Their voices brought change, particularly in Florida back in 2018.
And just the fact that, gun violence prevention is a top issue for folks, that's something to be so proud of, because that's something that we did.
Serena Rodriguez is a national coordinator at March for Our Lives, a movement organized by former Parkland students. She says 2018 was a first step, but gun violence continues to be an alarming issue.
We are in a gun violence crisis, and there's momentum 100% because young people especially, we know what's at stake.
So I think Zach and I made a huge push with gun safety. I think there's a lot more that can be put and brought to the table in order to save more lives due to guns.
Adam is constantly hearing of gun violence across the country.
Every time I see an article, an event, whether it's a shooting or children dying, adults dying, it hurts me. This issue will never be solved.
While Adam tries to live his normal life,
Very tough class here at University of Florida.
February 14th is that unfortunate reminder every year for him and so many of his fellow classmates that more work needs to be done.
I'm always looking to make change, and that's just who I am as a person.
Now, Adam told me he goes about his normal day each and every February 14th. Of course, that day is always on his mind. However, this year, he plans to attend a vigil at the University of Florida with his fellow classmates.
A former local prosecutor and WPTV's legal analyst sat down with anchor Jay Kashmir to reflect upon the day and its impact on society.
911, what is your emergency?
Yes, there's shots at Stoneman Douglas. Someone's shooting up the school at Stoneman Douglas.
Someone is doing what? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Martin, Stoneman Douglas High School is being shot up.
February 14th, 2018.
I think we got shots fired. Hostile shots fired. 1200 building.
2:21 p.m.
She's
afraid to talk. They're hiding right now.
Inside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, 5 minutes of sheer terror changed the city of Parkland, the state of Florida, and this nation forever.
It's the deadliest school shooting that has ever happened in this country.
When it was over, 17 lives were remembered, honored, and memorialized.
Sentencing is not the end of this case. This case is going to live in the hearts and minds of everyone in South Florida, if not the nation, because of how gruesome it was and how many of our children were lost as a result of this act.
Their deaths sparked local and national outrage. Immediately, a movement took shape.
When you saw the survivors of this tragedy come together as a community and really lead the rallying cry for change, and they would not take no for an answer.
Hundreds who lived through that horrific day used the memories of the victims to fight for change, and they were quickly heard.
They have created a whole new generation of advocates, and through their peaceful protests, through their statements, through their speeches, they have literally told the lawmakers, we're not going to sit by and remain silent.
Missteps and miscommunication ran untethered in the aftermath. Broward County Sheriff and school superintendent lost their jobs. The school's resource officer resigned under scrutiny and awaits trial on charges of negligence and child neglect. And Everyday Sense built a roadmap around Nicholas Cruz, with signs along the way showing how this tragedy could have been prevented.
There were so many red flags, which we hope, moving forward, will make some significant change that these things won't happen again.
Laws changed within months. Those voices from survivors carried an echo that went well beyond Parkland.
We saw laws that were passed that before this tragedy would never have even seen the House floor in the state of Florida.
And the most polarizing of them all, gun violence, again became an all too familiar topic that raged through the halls of Congress and our government. Another school, another tragedy, and another lesson learned.
And at the end of the day, we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. As Michelle pointed out, there were a lot of failures on this case. The only failure that goes forward is if we don't learn from it.
The sentencing phase for Nicholas Cruz was postponed this month. The judge has now pushed that back to the first week of April. A jury will decide whether it will be life in prison without parole or the death penalty.